So why is the IMF praising India at the moment? Joining me now is Anne-Marie Giedvold. She is the Deputy Director of Asia and Pacific Department at IMF. Ma'am, when the IMF Director General suggested last week India the bright light in a dark horizon as the world heads towards a possible recession, why do you believe, why is the IMF saying, what about India stands out for you? Because there is a slowdown that's taking place in the Indian economy as well.
Thank you for this question. India is indeed growing still very fast. We forecast 6.8% growth this year and 6.1% of growth next year. So it is growing much faster than other emerging market and developing countries. This said, India's growth has been downgraded from what we had in April of this year, when we still forecast 7.4% of growth. So we see India still as one of the growth drivers of the region, but India is also subject to headwinds like other countries in the region, maybe not quite as much so, given India's very big domestic market, and given that India has already taken some very important policy steps with fiscal budget that is appropriately focused on capital expenditures and some monetary tightening. So let me summarize that India is doing relatively better than other emerging markets and developing countries, and that's why we see it as a bright spot at the horizon right now.
So India doing much better than other emerging market economies, as you're saying, but the fact is, ma'am, that you have already trimmed India's growth by about 60 basis points from your July projections, from 7.4% now to 6.8%, the steepest cut for any major economy barring the US. Are you saying that therefore it's only the relative aspect of the Indian economy that gives you hope that India at the moment shines out compared to others, because you are cutting India's growth rate as well?
That is one way of putting it. So India we indeed have downgraded it by about 60 basis points, as you said, and this is mainly as a result of the external headwinds that India is facing, with the rapid financial tightening in global markets and the increase in commodity prices as a result of the Ukraine war. But domestic policies have reacted in India, and as I mentioned, compared to other emerging markets, India is doing relatively better, and there is some catch-up growth from the time of COVID. So yes, it is. It's a relative assessment, but at the absolute level, it's also still a significant growth rate.
One final question, ma'am. The two concerns here in India at the moment, that we have a rupee that's falling as compared to the dollar. I know the finance minister says the rupee, it's the dollar that's strengthening, but the rupee is falling. And inflation also proving to be a little bit more resilient than we might have imagined. Should we be worried looking ahead? Do you believe that there are certain headwinds that India could face, like the rest of the world, particularly given what's been happening in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, the headwinds that India is facing are faced by emerging markets and even advanced countries globally. We have actually reduced the inflation forecast slightly for India from what we had in our April forecast, and that reflects that India has already gone through several rounds of appropriate monetary tightening. We see that there is a need for further monetary policy action. It's important that this monetary policy action be appropriately calibrated and adequately communicated. So should we be worried? I think the authorities have understood.